So starships in Star Wars, for me, they are the most iconic thing about the entire franchise. I know that some people might have been drawn in by the lightsaber battles, the good guy versus bad guy kind of fantasy aspect, but for me it was the starships and the space battles. I remember being about 4 or 5 years old and getting these little model X-Wings and TIE fighters and having these pretend space battles with my older brother, and then sitting down and watching Return of the Jedi was, one of those moments that I'll never forget, seeing the big space battle above Endor. And again, all you have to do to really please me in a film now is just give me a really good space battle, a really good detailed space battle. And that's why I love Rogue One so much, because for all the faults that film does have, for all of the kind of, member berries that it has that kind of make you feel a little bit weird, the space battle is absolutely fabulous. So what I want to do is sit down and rank all of the memorable starships. They're not every starship because we'd be here forever, but I've picked out about 60 different starships, some from Legends, some from canon, most are from both, and I just kind of want to rank them, based upon my opinion of not just how they look, but also the origins, their use, just my general thoughts on them. So again, this is going to be my own opinion, that's all. So if you disagree with it, that's fair. I'm going to try and limit my explanations because, again, otherwise we're going to be here for like an hour plus. So if there's anything that you see in a particular tier and you want to know why I put it there and I didn't explain it very well, just ask me a question in the comments. Just say, Simon, why did you put this there? And I'll do my best to get back to you and explain. Now, we've got 5 tiers. You can see pretty self-explanatory. The top tier is Worthy of the Emperor. Then we move down to Oh, It's Beautiful. Then we move down to You Came in That Thing, You're Braver Than I Thought. That's kind of our, average kind of, it's alright tier. Then we've got The Garbage Will Do, which is where we're getting to that point where it's like, oh, this really isn't great, but it's not the worst. And then What a Piece of Junk is kind of like my least favourite. I don't outright hate any starships, but there are some where I'd just be like, you know what, I'd be happy if I never had to see you again. I don't understand your purpose. So we're going to jump in. These are in no specific order, they're just how they've loaded up. So I'll try and, again, keep this as brief as possible. I'll try and explain, my sort of logic behind each one as much as I can. The images are a little bit cropped, so they're not in full, but I'm going to explain which ships they are as they come along. So the first one we have here is the Cantwell-class Star Destroyer, which was introduced in Andor and is based off the concept art of the original Star Destroyer by Colin Cantwell. I love the fact that, they brought this in its just, purest form, because it looks really weird. 3 little radar dishes, this little stumpy kind of long front, and renaming it the Cantwell class Star Destroyer was a nice touch. I really liked they paid tribute to the concept artists behind the original films. Most people think concept art Ralph McQuarrie, but there were so many people who aided designs on the original film, so it was nice to see Colin Cantwell get a bit of recognition. I also love when Star Wars is weird, and the whole scene with this was fantastic with Luthen. So I'm putting up here, starting off strong with It's Beautiful, because it is. It's not, again, it's conventionally ugly. You look at it and you think, what in the hell is that? But actually it serves a purpose. It's a spy ship. It's there to monitor communications, and it's got a big, kind of tractor beam on it. So that's great. Up next, we've got the Quasar-class Star Destroyer. And again, this is introduced in Rebels. This has got a bit of a unique purpose to it. It's essentially an aircraft carrier for the Empire. And I absolutely love the design. I love the underhanging hangars. I love the kind of just the idea of it not being, an assault ship. It is there just purely to serve the purpose of we need somewhere to store these ships that isn't a Star Destroyer. And then the Rebels went and hoisted it and crashed it into an Interdictor, class Star Destroyer. It was really cool. And I think this is definitely one of my favourite designs. So it's going up here in Worthy of the Emperor. Now, we move on to the Starhawk, which is, again, a ship introduced in the new canon, in the sequels. We didn't actually get a good look at this until Squadrons came out in that time. For the longest time, we'd only read about, the kind of Battle of Jakku and this Starhawk cruiser, which, was made out of old bits of Star Destroyers. And, the purpose of it is there to essentially have this massive tractor beam and to, be a bit of a juggernaut. Now, I've got to say, and this might be where, you know, some people disagree, and there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with my opinions here, I think, but that's what makes it, you know, great, is we all have different opinions. I really don't like the design of this ship. I think it's clunky, it's ugly, I don't like the big emitter on the front. I just think they could have done so much better with the Alliance ship. You know, some of the Alliance ships have got beautiful designs. I'll get onto that in a little bit, but this was a really missed opportunity, and it is going down in what a piece of junk, because I do think it was a bit of a piece of junk. Up next, the Interdictor class Star Destroyer, which there is two different designs for this. There's an older one, which was more Legends based, which looks more like a traditional Star Destroyer. I've gone for the more updated one, which I think looks a lot better. It looks a lot more kind of advanced. It's got the really thin bridge, the less pronounced kind of gravity well bubbles. I think it's a really cool looking ship. I'm going to put it up here, worthy of the Emperor, and you're probably going to see a bit of a theme here, because I really like Imperial design, and the kind of dagger shaped ships, the kind of militaristic looking ships that just look really intimidating and aggressive. Up next is the Z-95 Headhunter, which again is an older ship. It was something that was recently reintroduced into canon with Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which was really great to see. And to all intents and purposes, if you haven't seen a Headhunter, you might look at it and go, well, that's just an X-Wing. But it's not. It's kind of like a cheapened version of an X-Wing. It's only got 2 wings, 2 blaster cannons, 2 engines. It's not an X-Wing, but it looks, for all intents and purposes, from a distance, if you squint, like an X-Wing. I think it's okay. I'll put it up here in, you came in that thing, you're braver than I thought. Now, again, this is probably going to be a little bit of a controversial opinion. We've got the V-19 Torrent, and I don't like this ship. I really don't like the design of it. I think it cropped up first in the Clone Wars. It's got these really thin wings and then this really thin stabilizer at the bottom. It looks weird. It doesn't look elegant. It doesn't look graceful in battle. It's stupid, and I'm putting it in what a piece of junk, because I just don't like it. Up next, something I do like is the Naboo Starfighter, the N1, which in its original livery, the Naboo livery, not the kind of Mandalorian bastardization of it. I'll get into that story when we come onto the Razor Quest, because I have a little bit of an issue with Mando's N1. Just not because of the looks or anything, just because of how it signifies the kind of dropping quality for that show. But the Naboo Starfighter in its purest form is great. It, again, reflects the culture. It's elegant. The chrome design with the, kind of warm yellow. It's a really nice design, and the sound of the thing is just amazing. So it's going to go up here in, oh, it's beautiful, because it is. It's really beautiful. Now, the Jedi Interceptor, which replaced the Jedi Starfighter, which you can see is next in the list in Return of Revenge of the Sith, sorry. And it starts to implement some of the Imperial designs, the kind of TIE Fighter-esque glass cockpit. I've got to say, I think it was a downgrade on the Jedi Starfighter. I didn't like it, especially when it came to Yoda's little stumpy fighter. It was a little bit weird. It's not the worst thing in the world. I'm going to put it down in the garbage will do, because it was a downgrade. It's not the most, terrible looking ship, but it was a downgrade. On this ship, the Jedi Starfighter, which again has got a very aggressive, sleek design, just you look at it and you instantly know what it is. Even though it's just a flying dagger, oh, Jedi Starfighter. So this is going to go up in, oh, it's beautiful. So yes. The Droid Tri-Fighter, which I don't know if George was trying to allude to the Imperial design here. The prequels confuse me a little bit when it comes to, what George was trying to allude to with the designs. There are some that are very, very clear, like what's coming up next, as to what they are preceding. And the Droid Tri-Fighter, I don't know if it was supposed to evoke, the sort of TIE Interceptor, or even the TIE Phantom, which is something coming up later. I like it. It's a decent design. I'm gonna put it up here in on middle tier, because I think it's a little clunky, but I kind of like it. It's got a unique look to it. Now the ARC 170. The ARC 170, which is where some people, again, might disagree with me here. I don't like this at all. I don't like the stumpy little nose. I don't like the pointless S-foils. Why has it got S-foils? The S-foils don't serve any real purpose. They don't have blaster cannons on them. It just looks a little bit stupid. I don't like the design of it. I'm going to put it down here in what a piece of junk, because I don't like it. The TIE Whisper, which replaced the TIE silencer. And again, we're talking about downgrades. I feel like this was a bit of a downgrade, even though in of itself it looks like a pretty cool ship. I didn't quite understand why this existed in the first place, because you could have kept Kylo Ren in his TIE Whisper and it would have had the same effect. I get the feeling that this is because of that scene where Rey did the backflip and cut through the wing. It made it look better than if it was the TIE silencer, because you could get the cockpit to roll. Don't get me wrong, I look at it and I think it's got a really cool look, because it's got the the TIE Interceptor wings. It's got the special ops cockpit. So in of itself, you know, I feel like it is a downgrade, but it's going to go up and it's beautiful, because it is. It's a beautiful looking ship. Now, so far, all of the Imperial designs have gotten a pretty good review. And, you know, again, it's a bit of a theme, except for this pile of junk, the TIE Striker. I don't know who designed this or who thought it was a good idea, but this thing looks stupid. It looks like a stumpy hot dog with these really weird wings that are overhanging it. You know, the cylinder-shaped cockpit looks stupid. And, you know, when you look at the function of it, it can't leave the atmosphere. So its purpose is pretty stupid as well. I get the feeling they just wanted to design something that looked unique for, you know, Rogue One. And don't get me wrong, I'm all down for new designs looking unique, but at least make it look nice. At least have it make sense. This thing is stupid. So I'm putting it down here in what a piece of junk, because it is. It's a piece of junk. The First Order Special Ops TIE Fighter, which again is not much different to the standard TIE Fighter, other than a red stripe, an undercarriage blaster, which is what, you know, the person in the gunner seat uses. And again, I also believe it has a hyperdrive and shields, which again just gives it a general upgrade on the standard TIE Fighter. I think it looks cooler than the standard TIE Fighter. I think I've always preferred the kind of black and white over the grey and black, or the blue, grey, black. And then that red stripe just makes it look even better. So I'm going to put it up here in, oh, it's beautiful, because it is. It's pretty beautiful. Speaking of beautiful, we've got the Resurgent class Star Destroyer. I didn't think that I could, you know, like a design as much as the Imperial class Star Destroyer, but they really did bring us a great looking ship that makes sense. That makes logical sense. It kind of keeps the aesthetic of the Imperial design, but removes some of the weaknesses, like the exposed bridge, the shield kind of generators on top of the bridge. You know, it kind of minimizes the design, but also keeping it looking really sleek, militaristic, and aggressive. This is going up in Worthy of the Emperor, because again, it is. Again, look at the... I hate how this looks like. I just love the Imperial design. I promise you, there will be some non-Imperial ships up here at some point. It's just the way it's kind of loading them all in here. So we got the First Order TIE Bomber, which is something that we only saw in Resistance and a couple of comics. Now, I remember seeing in a poster for The Last Jedi, these were on the poster, or I think it might have been the concept art. And I thought, wow, they look really interesting. And I was really disappointed when we didn't see them in the film. As much as I like The Force Awakens, I did find it rather bland when it came down to the ships, because it was just X-Wing vs TIE Fighter. I was like, come on guys, it's been 30 years. Give us more than just an inverted paint design. You know, give us some new ships. And even though technically a TIE Bomber isn't a new ship, the design of it is pretty new. In terms of, they've inverted the wings to go out. And again, the colour scheme is inverted. It looks really cool. It looks really aggressive. I like it. So, you know, this is going to go up here in... It's beautiful. Now, the TIE Defender, which again is a ship that started off in Legends, was brought into canon in Rebels, got a very unique design. It is supposed to be like the top class TIE Fighter because it's got shields, it's got faster hyperdrive. You know, the design is a bit strange. I don't like the kind of the ball cockpit in the middle and the way it's just kind of exposed, but I like the kind of the logic behind it. I like how it played into the story with Thrawn battling, you know, to get this project off the ground against the Death Star. So I'll put it up in the middle tier because I think it's an interesting design. It's not the best in the world, certainly not the best designed TIE Fighter. The U-Wing, which is an odd ship, because I don't like it in its classification right now where it's got the wings in the front, but when the wings deploy to behind, I think it looks far better. It's essentially like a Y-Wing with X-Wing engines and these long kind of struts that, you know, deploy when it goes into hyperspace. And again, I like the purpose behind it. It's a troop carrier. They needed something, you know, for the rebels to carry troops. I'm a little bit mixed on the design, so I'm going to put it in, you know, the garbage will do, because it's not the best. I think they could have done a lot better with this. The V-Wing, which, if I'm right in thinking, showed up in the second half of Revenge of the Sith for the first time and featured the iconic sound of the TIE fighters, you know, that twin ion engine sound. Again, alluding to the TIE fighter design a little bit with the wings. You know, it's an alright ship. I'm just going to put it in the middle here because it's not brilliant, not terrible. It's got its advantages. Yeah. Now, the TIE Phantom. This is one of the, I think, 2 ships maybe, which is not in canon. This is just purely a legend ship. And if you've played Rebel Assault 2, you'll know this ship because this was the experimental cloaked TIE fighter. And again, very similar to the TIE Defender, it was a secret project to try and develop, you know, these extra special TIE fighters that had something about them that would give the Empire an edge. Essentially, these were just cloaked TIE fighters, which, you know, again, is a really cool concept. But I love the design. I love the sort of tri-fighter, you know, tri-wings that are all pointed. It looks very aggressive. I think the cockpit looks pretty good, way it's kind of like elongated and not a ball like the TIE Defender. This is my favourite TIE fighter design, and it's going to go up here in Worthy of the Emperor. Again, we're 4 for 4 on the Imperial designs at the top, but again, I promise you, we are going to get some non-Imperial stuff up here eventually. It's throwing up all the Imperial stuff first. Speaking of which, we've got the Dreadnoughts, the First Order Dreadnought. Now, I remember back when we were about 2 or 3 weeks out from The Last Jedi, and they started to show us some of these, you know, kind of pictures of the ships, which included the Dreadnoughts and the Mega-class Star Destroyer. The Dreadnought, I looked at it at first and I was thinking, wow, that's like a really flat ship, isn't it? That's like someone's taken a Star Destroyer and just smushed it down. But then when I saw it in the film, I thought it looked really cool. You know, it does. It's massive. It's got this really interesting kind of flat design. I love the sound of the sirens when it jumps in from hyperspace. It's a really intimidating ship. I'm going to put it up in Oh, It's Beautiful because it is. It's quite beautiful. Now, moving on to the Mega-class Star Destroyer, which, when you think, oh, well, they can't go any bigger than the Super Star Destroyer, they do. But what I like about it is they didn't make it longer, they made it wider. And it makes sense. I just wish that we had, like with the Dreadnought, I wish we had more of this. I wish that these things were in the first film and lasted until the last film. You know, make it Snoke's seat of power. Establish it early on as a threat and have it constantly in the background doing something until the last film when you have like a big battle and it's finally taken down. As it was, we only got a couple of scenes with it, you know, in detail, and then all of a sudden it's disabled at the end of the film and it didn't even come back. But I love the fact that it's a huge city, you know, it is just an entire military complex, and you can see the docking ports on the sides of the wings. Really like this ship. It's going to go up in Oh, It's Beautiful because it really is beautiful. Up next, we've got the droid transport ship for the Trade Federation. One of the first ships we see in the Phantom Menace. Interesting design. Never really took my fancy with like the little stumpy foot underneath. You know, but has a clear purpose. I'm going to put it down in the garbage will do. Now, the B-Wing. And my biggest question is, why is it called a B-Wing and not a T-Wing? Because it's clearly shaped like a T. But I remember as a kid seeing this in the Battle of Endor and seeing it kind of swiveling around on a gyroscopic, you know, kind of cockpit. And I thought that looks really cool. It's got S-foils that deploy. It's a sort of weird shape. And, you know, with the backstory it got in kind of Rebels of it having the beam weapon, they could have really added to it there, but we never really saw that beam weapon again. I think it's a really interesting design, and again, in keeping with the aesthetic of the Rebels, with it being a little bit run down, a little bit industrial compared to like the sleek, elegant design of the Imperials. I'm going to put it up in It's Beautiful, because I really do like the design of it. Now, we've got the Consular class ship, which is in its Republic livery here, and again, the first ship I think we see in the Phantom Menace. I like it. It's got a kind of rustic Republic design. It kind of alludes to the Blockade Runner a little bit, but again, it's simple, it's sleek, does all the things right. It's going to go up here and it's beautiful. Now we got the Scimitar, which is Darth Maul's ship, and you know, again, this is just one I do not like. I can see what George is going for. It's supposed to look a little intimidating, but the big stumpy nose just makes it look ridiculous. If you remove that long nose, it looks a little bit like a TIE Inquisitor, a TIE fighter for the Inquisitors. As it is in this form, I hate it. Well, I don't hate it, but I really don't like it. I think it looks stupid. The Mantis, which is the ship for Cal Kestis in the Jedi games. Again, this might be a little controversial. I never really took to the Mantis. The big sail that it's got that, again, kind of goes horizontal and vertical was never really my cup of tea, but I don't think it's terrible. I'm just going to put it in the garbage will do because it's never been a ship I've been particularly fond of. I love the games, love the characters, love the story, but the Mantis was just something I could have, give me the Cantina on Kobo over, the Mantis any day of the week. TIE Interceptor, I mean, peak Imperial design. Don't really need to say anything more. Favourite of the Imperial era, film designs. It's going up here, top tier. The Imperial TIE Fighter, again, it's kind of iconic. The noise on it is amazing, and I love the fact that Andor made one TIE Fighter feel so intimidating. That's what it really should have been, rather than this disposable kind of ship that is doomed from the moment it appears on screen. I'll put this in, you came in that thing, you're braver than I thought, because quite simply, I think to be a TIE pilot, you have to be a little crazy. No shields, no hyperdrive, one hit, you're dead. And especially those TIE pilots who flew through the asteroid field in, Empire Strikes Back. A lot of credit to them for, being brave. They're dead now, so it doesn't really matter. The Kazanti class cruiser, which, again, has a really great purpose. It's there to transport, other ships, whether it's TIE fighters, AT-ATs. It's got a sort of cargo-esque purpose to it. I like the design. I think it's pretty good. And I always appreciate when the Empire tries to show us something other than Star Destroyers for their military. It appeared, I think, in Mando Season 2. I think it was the episode with, the other Mandalorian showing up, Bo-Katan, and, her Night Owls. Again, interesting design. I'm going to put it up here in the middle tier. Now, the TIE Advanced, which, again, I think was designed purely just to make it clear who the big bad was. It was Darth Vader. But I like the purpose behind it. It's got, shields, hyperdrive. It's essentially the VIP version of the TIE Fighter. It's pretty decent. I think it's all right. I'm going to put it up in its beautiful, just because it is iconic. Now, the Razor Crest, and this is kind of one where I will admit openly that the design is not the best. It is, a bit clunky. It's a little ugly. I know it's supposed to be presented in, past its best kind of design. But I love the fact of what it sort of resembled. It was, Din Djarin's home. And as I mentioned earlier when it came to the N1 Starfighter, the reason why I kind of don't like Din's new Starfighter is because it represents the change in tact for the story. With the N1 Starfighter, that is there to give him the action scenes, to go around blasting pirates, through asteroid fields, really fast-paced action that ties into, the bigger story. Whereas the Razor Crest was his home, and represents the fact that he could, after a singular mission, go back, rest, recuperate on the N1 starship, and it was almost like a character in of itself. And it represents moving away from those kind of episodic stories at the very beginning to it becoming more kind of, I don't even know the word for it, become more immersed in the larger Star Wars universe, which is not something I ever really wanted. I wanted The Mandalorian to remain separate, be episodic, little space adventures, with him and Grogu, but it kind of morphed into, again, it being about the Jedi and, kind of the Empire, and it just kind of represented the fall of the show in a way. But the Razor Crest itself, I think, is a fantastic, ship. Not just its design, but, again, the fact that it did become a character in of itself. I was very sad when they destroyed it. Don't know how I feel about it coming back in the Mandalorian film. We'll see. Now, the Radis, this is the Profundity, which showed up. It's because, Admiral Radis was in charge of the Profundity. Showed up in Rogue One, Again, appreciate new ship designs, and it was pretty cool how they had the kind of bridge at the very bottom. It's kind of inverted to the Invisible Hand, which had the kind of observation deck on top, and it presented a really interesting set piece when you were looking down at Scarif, you know, as the battle was going on. The design itself isn't the best. I don't think it really was in keeping with the Mon Cala design. It was a little bit too sleek and smooth, you know, whereas Mon Cala designs tend to be like bubbly and, you know, industrial. You'll see with Home 1 in a second. So, you know, again, it's got its benefits, but I didn't think it was fantastic. So I'm going to put it down here in the garbage will do. It's again, it probably is a little bit harsher than it makes it sound, but, you know, it's not my favorite design. Whereas Home 1, I think, is a fantastic design. Again, iconic. And it was probably just one of those ships that they designed for, you know, the Battle of Endor and didn't think too much of it. You know, and they just made it. But it's become a bit of a legend, and it was great seeing it show back up in Ahsoka. I'm going to put this up here in Oh, It's Beautiful. Now, we are starting to struggle to see some of the ships at the bottom here, so I'll try and pronounce them as best I can so that you can see them. And I might rejig the screen a little bit when it comes to it. But this is the cargo transport for the Rebels. And again, when I was a kid and you watched Empire Strikes Back, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. They are the ships taking away the cargo, the troops, you know, it's escaping. It doesn't look like it's there for battle. And then in Return of the Jedi, you see them in the Battle of Endor and you're like, oh, what's that doing there? That's a bit strange. How is that going to be useful in battle? And they've showed up every so often. They were in the Battle of Scarif. They've been, you know, around in other forms. The design themselves are all right. I don't think they're anything special or brilliant. I'm going to put it in the middle tier here. Up next is the Y-Wing. Again, a classic Rebellion ship. Iconic. Very much, you know, one of those things where you can tell the Rebellion has just stole a bunch of them. They're not in great shape, but they are powerhouses of ships. Again, fantastic. Up here in Oh, It's Beautiful. The Imperial-class Star Destroyer. I don't really need to say much more other than it's going up at the very top in Worthy of the Emperor, because it is worthy of the Emperor. Really is. I'm going to take a quick break just to rejig the screen, because I get the feeling that it's going to get a little bit expanded, so bear with me. Okay, so we're back. So up next is the Raddus. And again, this is a brilliant design. I really did like it. And again, I was disappointed with the fact that we didn't get to see more of it. You know, the Rebellion needed more capital ships, I think, in that post-original trilogy era. You know, the thing that I guess that disappointed a lot of people was the fact that the New Republic didn't really play a big part in the sequel trilogy. They kind of wiped out before we even get into it. And so, you know, for me, I was like, when I saw this ship, I was like, yes, this is like when the New Republic was just, again, being reintroduced. They made this amazing Raddus ship. It's got a really cool kind of pointed front end. It's got a really sleek and interesting design. It just looks, you know, like a capital ship. This is going up at the very, very top. And I did say, I promised that there would be more ships going in to that very top kind of segments that weren't Imperial class or Imperial ships. And there we have it. Our first non-Imperial ship in the top tier. So I do keep my promises. Now, the Ghost, this is probably going to be one that will surprise people. Again, it's the ship that, you know, you associate most with Rebels. I've got a lot of good memories of the stories from the ship. The ship itself, I think, is quite ugly. I do. I think it's quite ugly. I don't think it's the best designed ship in the world. Although, you know, obviously everything that happens in Rebels really brings it up in my estimation. It's going to go in the middle section here. It's going to go in our average section, I will call it. As is, and again, this might surprise some people, the X-Wing. I've never been a massive fan of the X-Wing. It is iconic. It's, you know, something that you see and you know immediately that's Star Wars. But it's never been something that I've really thought, oh yeah, that's like amazing. You know, it's like the default ship. Maybe it's because I've become overexposed to the X-Wing, and that's kind of like the default good guy ship, and that's kind of just made me think, I'm not really the most interested in it. It's not bad. It's not great. I'm just going to put it there. Again, might be a controversial opinion, but hey, that's just me. Now, the Invisible Hand, which was Grievous's capital ship in the sort of Battle of Coruscant. Again, I really like the designs of the CIS ships. Very different to everything else. And again, as I mentioned, I love the fact that we've got the observation deck at the very back, just kind of giving you a really interesting set piece when, you know, you're having that final battle with Anakin and Dooku. The design itself is great, so I'm going to put it up here in, oh, it is beautiful, because it is. It's quite beautiful. Now, the A-Wing, which, again, another iconic Rebellion ship. Essentially, it is the sort of Rebellion's version of the Jedi, of the TIE, I keep saying Jedi Interceptor because that's the ship that we had earlier, the TIE Interceptor. It's there to be fast, you know, a little bit under, you know, sort of powered when it comes to the weapons, but it will speed around like nobody's business. I'm going to put it up here in It's Beautiful because it's a really interesting looking ship. Now, we have the Hammerhead cruiser, which is, again, a ship that existed in Legends long before it was brought into canon in Rogue One. And again, I think it was in Knights of the Old Republic, as well as some other games. But I love the whole concept behind this. You know, the Hammerhead shark inverted so that rather than having the long horizontal head, you've got the vertical head. It's just like this really small bully of a ship. You know, it's there to ram other ships, but it can also do so much more. It's a little powerhouse, and that scene in Rogue One with it ramming the disabled Star Destroyer into the other one, just so iconic. It is going up in Worthy of the Emperor, because it really is iconic. Okay, so up next we have the Gauntlet, which is the Mandalorian ship that we see throughout Clone Wars, reintroduced into live action in the Mandalorian series. Again, I really like this design, and I like the way the wings kind of serve almost as like landing gears. You know, they kind of fly up, but again, they're very pointed, very aggressive, very much like the Mandalorians. So this is going in, oh, it's beautiful. Now, the T-75, which is the New Republic version, not the newest New Republic version, but kind of like the sequel era New Republic version of the X-Wing. The T-65 is the Rebellion version, the T-75 is the kind of sequel film version, and the T-85 is the one that shows up in Resistance, which is like the newest of new X-Wings. I think I've got those numbers right. If not, let me know in the comments. But I think this was, again, a downgrade on the original X-Wing. I don't like the kind of ergonomically designed wings that are a little bit thinner, that kind of collapse onto each other. I don't like the half-cut engine exhausts that make it look like just two big engines now. It just does not look as good, in my opinion. So it's going to go down in the garbage will do, because I do think it's a little bit garbage. The Acclamator class Star Destroyer, which is, again, evokes the memories of the scene in, you know, Attack of the Clones, where Palpatine is looking over all of the clones boarding the ships. You get them taking off, and then the Imperial, you know, march hits, and it's just like, it's an iconic scene. You know, from a film that is questionable in its quality, that was one of the moments that I look back and I could watch over and over again. And again, it's the precursor to the Star Destroyer. I know the Venator comes up next, but this for me is a much closer design to the Star Destroyer, the Imperial class, than the Venator was. So I think it's a beautiful design. I do like it. Now, the Outrider, which again is a ship that was recently reintroduced into canon in Rebels. I was disappointed with how they used it, but this was one of my favourite, and you know, for me as a kid playing Shadows of the Empire, I knew that they were trying to make a discounted version of the Millennium Falcon, but I actually really like this more than the Millennium Falcon. Don't know why, it speaks to me more. You know, and again, I love the design of it. I love the story behind Dash Rendar. For me, this is going up in the very, very top here as Worthy of the Emperor. The Blockade Runner, up next. Again, the very first ship we see in any of the films. Classic, iconic, you know, looks small and kind of lightweight, but, you know, in of itself, it's called a blockade runner. It's not supposed to pack a punch. It's there to try and escape big ships, which it didn't, unfortunately, in A New Hope. But I really like it. It's going to go up in, oh, it's beautiful, because it is. It's a beautiful ship. Now we have the one of the Naboo cruisers. I haven't put every single one in. I've put the one in that we saw most, which is the one from the Phantom Menace. And again, anything around the Naboo, you have to think, well, their culture is to be elegant. You know, they're refined, and the chrome design is key here. And I love the fact that Phasma made her armor from Palpatine's personal yacht, which was made from the same chrome material. as all of these Naboo starships, because obviously Palpatine was from Naboo. Again, really like it. Good design. It's going to go up here, and it's beautiful, as most Naboo ships will. Now, we've got the TIE Reaper, and again, very much like the TIE Striker, I don't like the design of it. It's a little bit better because it serves more of a function. It is like a small troop transport, but I don't like the square solar panel at the back. I think without that, it might look a little bit better. It's just never really done it for me. And I know there is one of these in Galaxy's Edge, and I've never been. So maybe if I saw it up close, I might think better of it. But this is going to go down into the bottom, along with the TIE Striker. Now, the TIE Silencer, which again, I was so thankful for when it came to it. When it came to The Last Jedi and I saw that ship, I was like, yes, finally something different that isn't just a TIE fighter or an X-Wing. And you can see how they're trying to evoke the designs. It's a little bit like Darth Vader's TIE Advanced. Kylo Ren obviously would try and emulate him. But you've got like TIE Interceptor wings, you've got red glass for the cockpit. It just looked so badass and sleek. This is definitely going up in the top into It's Beautiful, because it is, it's beautiful. The TIE Bomber, again, kind of serves a good purpose, in keeping with Imperial design. It's nothing special, though. I'm just going to put it up in the middle section here. Nebulon B Frigate, pretty similar. I've liked the ship. It's never really stood out to me as being, like, super iconic or anything, so it's going to go in our middle tier here. So up next, I'm just trying to remember the official name of this ship. I do have them up here on the side. It's the Architens class cruiser, which is a Republic cruiser originally, but the Empire took them on, obviously painted them grey, and we saw that Moff Gideon has one serving as his, kind of flagship. I do like the design. Again, it's kind of an evolution on the design of the Consular class. Whilst trying to also evoke something of the Star Destroyer, the Imperial class. And again, I like the kind of the little shuttle bay that's at the very front of the ship. It kind of definitely evokes health and safety issues. There's no room for error when launching from that thing. But it's a sleek looking design. So I'm going to put it up here in It's Beautiful. Now, the Lambda class shuttle. Again, I can't really say much other than I think this is an elegant and beautiful design. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Absolutely brilliant. It's going up in the very top here for me. Okay, so up next we've got another one of the CIS ships. I'm trying to, again, just remember the official name of it. I don't know why I had it on the tip of my tongue just before. Where are we on my list of ships here? Bear with me 2 seconds, folks. The Munificent class cruiser for the CIS. And again, I'm fairly certain these were present during the Battle of Coruscant in the Revenge of the Sith film, but they really come into their own in the Clone Wars animated series. And again, I think these are really sleek, good-looking designs. I think that, again, when you look at it, the kind of CIS has its own unique look, its own unique aesthetic, which is hard to do in the Star Wars universe. So I'm going to put this up here in It's Beautiful, which, again, is kind of stretching our screen to the limits, but we've only got a few more to go, and they are mostly recognisable, so you should be okay with this. Now, moving on to Slave 1. I'm not going to call it the Fire Spray, because it is called Slave 1. That's the name of it. Again, I think that this is a ship that probably when they designed it, didn't think it would become as iconic as it was. It was just the ship for Boba Fett to escape in. But they did some magic here to make, again, a very unique looking ship with a unique design, with the way that, it kind of lands and then flips up when it takes off. The sound design is super iconic. The sonic charges, super iconic. Everything about the ship is really iconic. I will admit there's a bit of an issue with scale, because I think that, the ship is maybe a little bit bigger in The Mandalorian than it was in, the original films. But I will let that consistency issue pass by. But this is going to go up into our top tier here, because it's an iconic ship. And how dare they try and rename it? It's called the Slave 1. Thank you very much. The Super Star Destroyer. Yeah. That says everything. It is the best of the best. with the exception, I would say, of the Imperial class. It is my second favourite Star Destroyer. We've got the Malevolent, which is also going to go up here at the very top. The Malevolent, which, if you haven't seen the Clone Wars, is kind of like the CIS's version of a Super Star Destroyer. It's this massive, massive capital ship that, again, was kind of like the home base of the CIS. It had this really interesting ion cannon weapon that disabled, loads of ships in one go. Interesting design, interesting concept. A little disappointed that they, got rid of it so soon in the show's run. But it is what it is. Now, up next, Millennium Falcon. Again, iconic ship. It's not quite my favourite. Again, I did say that, the Outrider for me was my favoured design, but you can't really put the Millennium Falcon any lower than, oh, it's beautiful, because then people would shout. And, I'd be lying to myself if I said it was any lower than that. It's not quite, for me, top tier, even in its iconic state. Maybe it's again a bit of that, I don't know, I've seen it so many times. Maybe I'm just getting a bit of Millennium Falcon fatigue, as it were, because it's in everything. Up next, we've only got 4 left now. The Zeiston class Star Destroyer. Now, you look at my list here and you go, well, Siren, almost every single Star Destroyer or Star Destroyer type design is in those top 2 tiers. And I would say yes, and with good reason. So you must be thinking, well, the Zeiston class it's the Imperial class Star Destroyer with a red stripe, is it? And you'd say yes, well, essentially. I mean, there's a bit more to it than that, so surely it would be going up in the top tier. And I'd say, well, you're definitely on track with the logic there, but unfortunately, my logic here doesn't apply because this ship is a pile of garbage. Not from the look of it, it still looks great. And I was, again, the one thing that I really wanted to see was kind of like a sequel era Star Destroyer outside, like, an Imperial class. So when they showed up in like the promos for the Rise of Skywalker, I got really excited. And then I saw the film. And, part of the disappointments, the major disappointment, might I add, was the fact that they made these Star Destroyers so lazily. Like, they literally just thought, how can we bring a Star Destroyer in, because it looks iconic, and just, I don't know, change it up. And they just added a cannon on the bottom. A planet-destroying cannon. Okay, so now we can suddenly just have planet-destroying cannons on Star Destroyers. And they made them bigger, but they didn't scale them. So when you look at it, it's the exact same design as the Imperial class in terms of the scaling of everything, but the ship is supposed to be like 50% bigger. So now you've got the same size bridge when you put them side to side, which means that the bridge windows would be like 50% taller. It's just a very lazily thought out design, and the way that it was just used to copy and paste it in for that final battle on Exegol was really lazy. So I'm putting this in at the very bottom here because, again, on the face of it, I like the design, but it was very lazy. I've got bad associations with that film, so it's going down there. The Droid Fighter, which again is a decent design. I would like to have seen a little bit more of it in the movies. It's going to go into our middle tier here. The Venator, which again I know a lot of people are probably think of as their favourite type of Star Destroyer. For me, it's great. It's iconic. It's not quite as good as like the Imperial or the First Order Star Destroyers, though. I've always been a little bit weirded out by the dual bridges. Like, I get the point that they do different things, but when I first saw it, I was like, why has it got 2 bridges? It doesn't look quite right, but it's going to go up in It's Beautiful because it's a beautiful looking ship, even if it's a little bit like thin and narrow. I always found the animated design for them a bit weird because they made them like a little bit flatter and fatter. I know they were taking artistic liberties with it, but I just always thought it didn't quite look right. And our last ship is the Luca Hulk ship, which again is kind of like the set piece for the villains in The Phantom Menace. I would have liked to again have seen more of these in these sort of prequel films, other than just, them showing up in that first film to be like the set piece. I know what George was doing. He was trying to create a parallel to, the Death Star being blown up by, a young pilot, and this kind of served in that way. But, these things are huge. They're like their own bloody army bases. They can host loads of ships. They can host loads of troops, and in of themselves, they then are able to fight in battles. So, again, I really like them. They're up here in Oh, It's Beautiful. And so there we have it. That's kind of everything here. I'm just going to move my camera down just a little bit so that you can see, you know, my final kind of designs here. So let's just move me down to here. So this is the final list. Obviously, there is a bit of a theme when it comes to the very top. There's a lot of Imperial ships there, but there's some non-Imperials. And again, mostly this is down to my own personal feelings rather than kind of like the designs of the ships. Although I would say that for the most part, the designs do line up in terms of what I think looks good and what I think looks bad. I'm wondering if there's anyone, you know, who would massively disagree with any of my choices there. So please do let me know in the comments if there's anything that you've seen in here that's like, whoa, I wouldn't have picked that. Why is that there? If you want an explanation in more depth as to why I've put something in a certain area, then by all means let me know. As I say, it's Star Wars. I don't necessarily hate any of these. I just think that some of the designs could have been better. Some of the designs were a little lazy. You know, maybe they were a bit of a downgrade on previous ones, which is why they lose points. But for the most part, this is what I've got. So yes, let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you for the next video.